Okay, we discovered something really fun last night in the last scene with the magic disappearing ink. It's really not that, it's just the reflective quality of this type of foil lends itself to a certain type of effect with the right reflected light shining in it. We're going to try to use that now much more strategically and purposefully than, me just coming up with it on accident here. Okay, so I'm doing this 100 proof press impression, and this guy's going to be kind of conjuring this thing on the horizon over the mountains and whatnot. We're going to have this cloud in between my cracked earth and rocky peaks, but it's also going to be behind my mountain, okay? And I'll show you how to do that. It's going to be very simple. Then we'll have some clouds up here, and then I have my eyes here from the symmetry sheet. And you'll see how this applies in here. It's going to be, I don't see this as like a Halloween, themed card, but it's going to be something kind of in that spirit, no pun intended, okay? But I think those eyes right there will be the thing that's kind of hidden, and revealing itself with that type of light. So let's see if we can have some fun here. Okay, we have our cotton ball. I need to really get a second Brilliance pad, one for my impressions and one for my cotton here, because some of this cotton does, transfer over to the pad and it gets stuck on the pad. Then when I try to use the pad for my impressions, it gets, there's a little fuzz on it, so that's not preferable. Okay, but let's see how this goes here. I have a big sloppy kind of application of this ink here. I've seen how it goes on in my previous scenes, and I think it looks pretty good even when it's kind of, blobby like that, okay? Which is good for us because it means that, we need even less of a, kind of smooth application of it. Okay, now down here, the mountains are going to be. I'm going to get a little bit more over the top of the mountains where there's going to be some clouds, but also I want some of this mountain to show up. If I just stamp black over, dark kind of purplish blue, we won't be able to see it unless we stamp it in something like a white, okay? So we're going to apply this down here, okay? And then, let's see, then we'll have some additional clouds down here. Okay, you can see my kind of fingerprint where I'm kind of tapping right through my cotton, so maybe I'll adjust my pressure a little bit, and I'll just, kind of smooth those out a little bit more, like this. Kind of have a varied surface here, okay? Now, it doesn't have to be smooth and smoothly transitioned in this type of process right here, okay? I mean, that's not smoothly applied, folks, okay? So don't worry about it, if you get kind of blobby on this, okay? By the time you stamp your imagery over it, it looks pretty cool. And the variation and kind of unevenness actually might kind of lend itself to, I don't know, kind of a more interesting surface. Okay, now down here, we're going to have some clouds and everything like that in here, okay? It's going to look like that. So we're going to have a little bit of light down here as well. Okay, now I can refine it too. Maybe I stamp my imagery and I think, okay, that's where the cloud's going to go. Or now that I know exactly where the cloud's going, then we can add, some additional tone into it, lighting. Okay, but what I like to do is there's going to be these eyes peering out from behind the clouds. Okay, I'm going to wipe some of this off to leave a little bit more space in there, a little bit more room. Okay, like that. You see how easy it is to do like that? You can kind of rub some of it off, okay? But I'd like to have a lot of reflected light down here, especially where my character is going to go. So we're going to illuminate this whole area right in the middle here, okay? And what I want is a little bit of a vignette around that character, so I'm not going to apply any ink around here, at least in terms of white, okay? So this is where is the kind of the spotlight on the characters. Okay, it's really it's a different spirit. Normally we're working on white paper, right? You know, for a large percentage of our paper crafting projects. You know, I don't know. Maybe some people have moved on, but that's where we all start off is using white. Okay, so this is using the opposite. You're using white on dark, so we're kind of going a little bit more, or a lot more, center oriented in here. Okay, with our applications, this ink right here really is kind of wet. So see this wet. It went underneath my stamp right here and it just wiped right off. But we're going to be heat setting this. So, but going back to white, what we're doing right here is we are going kind of more center oriented right here. A lot of times we work kind of on a darker perimeter when we have like a vignette of something. But on this, you're working the lights instead of the darkness in creating the vignette. You're just retaining the darkness out there instead. Okay? Alright, so we're working with light as opposed to shade, which is usually what the case is. You can't use white over, a white piece of paper or something like that. But we can use darker colors to show up on the white paper. This, we're doing the opposite. Okay. Okay, now speaking of that vignette, as I'm doing this, I'm learning myself too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dry cotton ball and I'm going to kind of tap the perimeter right here and I'm going to remove some of this ink, okay? Just with a dry cotton ball. Yeah, it's building up on here a little bit, but just kind of rotate it around a little bit. So you can go kind of a darker area. You can kind of wipe like this too. Don't wipe too much, otherwise it's you might pick up too much of the ink in it. I don't know. Okay, so see right here? See that lightness? I mean, you can see my fingerprint right there. Okay, so let's try to create a little bit more of this. I mean, you can wipe it off a lot. I don't want to wipe it off too much, though. But we'll go like that. Okay, so see that right there? It's a little bit darker there because I've removed ink now, okay? Now, for me, I just have to make sure that I have room for my eyes in here. And I should, okay? You're probably wondering, what is those eyes? I can't see the eyes. I'll show you, when I get to that. I hope it shows up in there. It wasn't just a one-time kind of phenomenon that doesn't work again. Okay, I think that is it. Now that's a large part of the project right there. The rest is just kind of stamping their imagery in there. We'll do some fine-tuning once everything gets stamped in there and heat set. We'll figure it out when we get there, but that's a lot of it. Now look how uneven this is. See how blobby it is right there? That is not an even coat. Even down here, it gets a little blobby and kind of uneven, but hey, it doesn't need to be really smooth. Now this, I have a series of designs, and I kind of have a general idea of how they're going to fit on here because I've, kind of laid them down. Even if you're just working with the rubber, you can just place the rubber on your piece of paper just to kind of get a general idea of the composition. You don't have to have it firmly intact, okay? Mine's, I'm going to be placing things where, I don't know, it's off from my initial kind of concept, I'm sure, but we just kind of adjust then. It doesn't have to be. It's not an exact process here by any means, and it's not temperamental either. Foil starts to bow, so maybe if I can kind of counter bow it as I'm doing it like this, I'm kind of curling it up like that. bend, this is foil, so yeah, it's totally warped, but we'll just bend that back into place. Okay, now I find that the most amount of kind of counter bending is after that first heat setting. So you just kind of roll it and try to find the right configuration to get it reasonably flat. It doesn't have to be completely flat, but in order to get those kind of impressions kind of, reasonably well stamped, try to get this, get the bends out of there. Okay, sometimes you have to bend it a little bit harder. Okay, it's coming around. This one right here really wants to, or it needs to be bent back into place. I did get a little scratch into, some of my ink right over here, but that's not going to matter once you stamp your impression over the top of it. Long card. What are they? Slimline, so a little bit, quite a bit more warping, across a much wider surface than a quarter-page card. But I think that it'll do it right there. And this cardstock here, I mounted anyways to flatten things out, in the end result, so I'm not terribly worried. This one really needs to be counterbent this way. Wow. Okay, so that is, that's good enough for me. Well, here. Alright, it really wants to bend, okay? Anyways, you see the process here. Alright, that's all I'm going to do right there. I'm going to be heat setting this again and again, so let's get our impressions laid down. Okay, now down here, I'm wondering if I should, I was wondering if I should put in a little bit of white ink around there, but let's just keep it as is down there. This will be more like a straight, strong spotlight. Maybe I'll go up a little bit higher. Okay, well, let's see. Clouds. Let's go about right here. I guess I will go down towards the bottom of the scene. Large stamps, larger surface area. This one doesn't have a ton of surface area. It's a large stamp, but it doesn't have like a lot of flat area surface, okay? But do, get pretty good pressure on there. The more kind of solid of an area you have on foil, now we have our foundation of the white ink, so the inks have something, this black ink will have something to grab onto a lot more than just bare foil. But you would kind of want to allow your ink, your Brilliance ink, to transfer over there. You can try StazOn or something like that too for this, the impressions. The one thing I don't like about StazOn too much is just how fast it dries. And that's what we want it for those purposes, but for me, I like to, kind of manipulate things a little bit more. And the StazOn is thin too. This is, pigment inks are much thicker. They're oil-based. You can boss on them. So I feel that transfers over a little bit easier in getting into this. But I don't know if that's what you have. Go ahead and give it a try, if you don't have the Brilliance Graphite Black. Or, just one of their other black colors. I don't know if, like, a regular pigment ink will dry over the top of the white Brilliance ink. It might, maybe that Brilliance ink kind of provides a little bit of a porous surface. I'm not sure, but like a regular black pigment ink, just on straight foil, it just won't dry. You'd have to emboss it or something like that, which you can do too. Embossing looks great on it, but just be mindful of that. Brilliance inks are a specific fast drying ink. Okay, I call it the StazOn of the pigment ink world. Okay, it's not exactly that, but just from the aspect, the point that it will dry. Okay, this is a cloud right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off the perimeter. Just, anytime I'm working with a really dark ink with this stamp, it creates a smoother transition into the other stamps that you're stamping it against if you wipe off the perimeter, because the perimeter now is drier, and thus you'll get a lighter impression. Okay, so I'm going to go about like so. Okay, when you go kind of clouds at the base of a mountain, and then you get the mountain peak rising above it, it kind of gives it a sense of a certain majesty to it, okay? And over here it's real dark, so I don't think we'll be able to see this cloud very much, so I don't really need to wipe it off, because you can't even see it. You'll be able to see it a little bit if I go like this. You can see that cloud right in here, okay? But it's invisible otherwise, so that's what we're kind of going after here with that invisible ink phenomenon. I don't know, vanishing, I don't know, whatever you call it. It's our playing with, light and mirrors trick in stamping. Okay, here's the Rocky Peaks. Okay, now I've done a video recently talking about image transitions. Okay, and when you do tonal images, you want to lay down as many dots as possible. I try to go for a couple hundred dots per square inch, okay? But see my transitions down here? See how that tonal grade goes from that to that? That's my transition zone, okay? In the cloud, it's all around the perimeter, okay? So we wiped off all around the perimeter before we stamped it out. But on this one right here, what I can do is I can just kind of wipe it off like this, dab off, I don't know, quarter inch, half inch into it, okay? And you're removing some of the ink. I'm not removing all of it, but that way I'm going from wet to dry, and it's going from dark to light. It's going from dark to light in the image itself because I taper my dots out more, okay? But this is so that we don't have to do so much work post-impressions, okay? If a design has zero information in it, if it's just an outline, it's left to us to fill it in with color, tone. We have to do a lot more work afterwards, and it's more of a caricature of an image. But this is a tonal image, so if you just kind of wipe off those transition zones, then we'll have a lot of graceful transitions. You don't have to do it because I've already transitioned it in the design, but it just helps out a little bit. Okay, see how seamless that just blends right into that one? I don't have this harsh line right there. And then I've wiped the top of the cloud out, so I don't get a harsh line on the top of the cloud. I don't get a harsh line at the bottom of the mountain, so they just blend right into one another. And these are thick black inks that we're working with, so we're working with the thickest, the most, I don't know, potentially seen like perimeter stamping stamps, or inks that we could possibly use. This is a thick black ink, so we can get the most, the biggest line showing, where one stamp ends and the other one begins with this type of ink. But even with this type of ink, if you do this right around the edge, okay, you won't get any of that. You don't have to worry about it. This is my transition zone down here. Now, I could mask off my mountain, and a lot of times I do, but I'll show you, I'm going to stamp this right over the top of my mountain right here. Okay, and I'm going into my mountain, but there is no line in between. They didn't need any type of mask because I've wiped off the bottom of this right down here, so it just transitions into there very seamlessly. Okay. All right. And this is where it's just, all that work is just taken out. You know, if you had to cut out kind of like a post-it note or something like that for down there, you know, I mean, that's a good technique if you're using outline designs, but in tonal designs with, you know, transitions that have taken, you know, the blending aspect into consideration, it eradicates the entire need for any of that. Some people feel that, oh my god, that's so hard. But it's been designed into the stamp to make it super easy. It's hard to kind of break old habits, though, you know, in terms of the concept. But it's really the ease of application. Okay, so here's a bank of clouds right here. And see how I kind of stamped it right up in there and it just kind of goes right into that open space. Now that open space is going to be treated with clouds like this. And I'm going to use it up here like this. Okay, so you could go like this, you know, where the billows are always up, but I like to kind of, you know, create this opening in here, and then I like to make it center lit. Okay, see the clouds are always top lit, but then there'll be side lit here and bottom lit here just by rotating your cloud around. You just use the same cloud. You don't have to have like separate clouds for that one purpose right there, right? So you get a lot of different looks just with the same image, just by using it at a different angle. Okay. I have many videos on how to use sky figures too. Okay. You just type in Stampscapes and skies or something like that into the YouTube search window, and it'll come up with you know, different series on you know, using sky figures. And I talk about this, you know, just kind of like quick little wiping off right here. Now, if you're stamping these all on white pieces of paper using a light blue ink, you don't have to really wipe it off because it's just so light to begin with. Okay, but we're talking about the darkest color and thickest style of ink possible here. So this little wiping off right here, that takes a couple seconds, saves us from any type of worry with that type of issue. And then we're overlapping a good amount. You're not doing any careful positioning, and it all comes out just absolutely seamless like that. Okay, so see how there's that kind of circle of clouds? It's because I've circled it this way, okay? So if you're, you know, stamping, if you don't have this kind of wood-mounted version, just take a look at the image, and you can see where those billows are right there, okay? And just always have those facing in. Or if you're using a stamp, you know, acrylic pad or, I mean, acrylic block or something like that, you know, you mount it on there, just, you know, keeping track of, you know, the direction of the, of your image. Okay, so that is the image. I didn't stamp my figure yet. I thought I would kind of develop this a little bit more if need be. And what I'm looking at here is, I think we need some additional shading in here. That's what I did in my scene yesterday, and it really kind of gave it a cohesive feel to the composition. Right now everything is kind of open. Remember how I left these areas right around here a little bit darker? It needs to go even darker than that. So let's see how that looks. Okay, let's heat set this. We've done our layer of white. Now we've done our layer of imagery, okay? So you just heat set in between your layers, okay? And I'm going to be applying more black ink on it. If I tried to apply the black ink on right now, with all these images being wet, they could, you know, easily smear. Oops, I forgot about one of our main thing right here. I forgot about our eyes. Okay, let's get that one stamped in here. It looks like about this much of it is going to fit, okay? So I don't need to necessarily ink up this side of it, but let's go about like this. Okay. Since I'm not using the whole stamp, I'll go just with a smaller block here. This block has some tack and peel on it, so you can get this temporary mounting of your image. I need to wash off this tack and peel. It's becoming very untacky. Okay, you'll have a better idea of what my eyes look like here. See this? Okay, now this is on this hard, kind of rectangle kind of formatting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blot off some of this ink around the perimeter, just like I did to everything else. Okay, there's not a kind of an easy transition zone here. It is a pretty hard rectangle shape. Okay, but we'll just do our best here, about like so. And let's see, I can mask some of this off too. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll go for a little bit of a soft mask around some of these clouds. I don't know if I need to mask off down there. I might not even stamp out down there. Okay, this area right here, let's see. I'm really removing a lot of the ink around the perimeter here. Okay, I don't think I'm going to need to mask. And I'll get the eyes right in here. This image right here has a really strong chance of fisheye in some areas, so that means the ink just doesn't transfer, or it kind of separates underneath there. There's fairly solid lines, but I'll try to do the best that I can. And what I mean by that is I'm just applying a decent amount of pressure. You don't want to squash things with the ink's going to squish out from underneath the design, and then it's not going to transfer. Remember, foil's almost like stamping on like a piece of plastic or something like that, so you don't want to squish the ink, out from underneath the design, and it squishes out all around the perimeter, and then there's nothing here, and then you lift it up, and then it didn't leave an impression. I'm just showing you that from the underside. But, we're stamping down here. Okay, now remember, you're not going to be able to see this, but that's the entire point. I want this kind of area in the sky to be kind of really dark, so the eyes will show up, when we hold it in a certain light, okay? All right, so let's see if we got a good impression here. Yeah, perfect, okay. So, hold your thing down a little bit long. Okay, I see an area in the eyebrows that didn't stamp out. See this right here? So there's a little tiny bit in the eyebrows. I'm going to fill that in with some additional ink. I can just use a Q-tip and fill it in. But there's our eyes. See like that? You can't see anything. And then we'll go like that, and it's like this, the eyes in the sky type of thing. See that? Okay, let's just fill that in right now. All right, so that happens. All right, now it's going to be frustrating. We don't want like 50% of the design to not stamp out. But if you just hold your stamp down and allow that ink to kind of start setting up a little bit, it will help it. It'll help you with your transfer of imagery. And test it out, Do a test on a piece of foil, stamp something out before you even start the scene, okay? I would say do that just in general. If you try this technique right here of brilliance inks on foils, just grab a piece of foil and do some impressions on it. Test different holding times, different amounts of ink on your stamp, and then just, pull up, and then when you're done, just, it's like a dry erase board. You just wipe it right off, or a wet erase board. And just, practice with it before you, start doing your, projects. I'm talking like 5 minutes or something like that. And that's the last time you'll ever have to do that. Okay, that is dry. It takes like seconds there. And when the ink dries for foil, black ink, it really dries flat, so you can see, when it's really dry. So see that? There's my eyes. Eyes in the sky. Okay, let's do our little... I think it's time for our little conjure. Or is it? Let's go ahead and do it, okay. I've used this many times over the years in various projects. In one of them, I did a project in the Fusion Gallery called Secrets of the Stone, and he was perfect for that. This guy, there's a lot of texture going on back here, so let's see if, it'll show up here. I hope so. I didn't want to stamp him over this cloud right there because there's too much black in the cloud. So too much, we need the silhouette of the shape to be showing, reasonably well. Okay, now, I'm letting this ink transfer over a little bit. Okay, this is a small stamp, so don't squash it. Otherwise, those hands, you're going to squeeze all the ink out from underneath the hands. It'll look like he's wearing mitts or something. Yeah, okay, that came out pretty good. All right, in terms of contrast, I mean, we could see him, very easily there. Okay? All right. Let's do this. Okay, I was going to heat set him, but let's do that perimeter toning here. Okay, so everything's looking a little bit haywire in terms of compositionally, but this is where I kind of really mellow things out a little bit with, or a lot, with some additional kind of framing. Okay, I need to be careful here. I don't want a ton of black ink on here, but my black pad is fairly juicy, so see how I'm kind of just staying in one area? I'm moving now. I'm not just going dot, 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 okay? I'm kind of moving this around like that. So I get that smooth kind of vignette right there. See that? You kind of keep moving it like that. But that really contains that area of the composition. Okay. Same thing around the, I can kind of put a little bit of a perimeter over the whole thing, but let's go like this. Okay, let's go right behind the mountain here. And right up into those clouds. Kind of like this little, I don't know, maybe oval type of shape here to this vignette. Okay. I'll do the same on the other side. We really need some highlights and some other types of things in here, white paint pen, to kind of really bring this piece to life, I think. Right now, everything's kind of a dreary type of finish to it. Everything's kind of soft looking. We need to bring some crisp elements in there, and that'll really finish things off really nicely. Or I hope, hopefully. Okay, give the mountain a little bit of darkness at the base of it. Oh, not too much. I'm tapping this cotton ball around with very little ink on it. So I'm getting a real thin application of ink as I'm doing this. Okay, it's not a big slathering. If you want, a big slathering, then you can do that, but do it in the darker areas, okay? Like down here in the corner. I'll kind of refine some of this white area down here by bringing some of this black into it. That's about right. There's our eyes up there. I'll put a little bit of darkness in between the cloud and the eyes too. Alright, let's add a little bit of a shadow at the base of the figure. Alright. Heat setting time again, okay? Okay, let's take a look. Everything is kind of murky and dark, and this is where I was talking about the refinements that we can start doing. We can start going back in, after we know where the imagery is, and fill it in with some additional lighting, okay? So we gave kind of a base layer of lighting, a general one. Now this is one where we can go into it with specifics, okay? So I'm taking my cotton ball and kind of fraying it a little bit, loosening it up on the tip. This one's a used one, so I have a little bit of dried paint there, but let's see if this one will work. Or dried ink. Okay, so I'm taking this into my cotton ball, and I'm blotting it off to kind of get the right consistency. It kind of spreads it around evenly on the tip. It smashes the ink, back beyond the surface too. And when I get kind of a dry consistency, I can start applying it onto, see, some of these billows in here. Okay, now take this slow. Don't go you don't want to color in the whole thing. It's like on the tops of the billows here. Okay, see how they're lighter on the top and darker on the bottom. So I'm not just trying to fill in that whole thing. I'm kind of hitting it on the top parts of these where they're lighter rather than darker. Okay. Now, it's not. You hit it kind of a little bit above, like that. Okay, so it's easy to do. You just don't do the whole thing. Don't worry about going into the area above. Just kind of stay out of the shadow area. Okay, see that right there? It's just like that. And it's not like so exacting like, oh my god, I hit the shadow. It's ruined or anything like that. I just don't concentrate and tap a huge amount into that area. See what I mean? If you get a couple taps in there, it's fine. But see, this is where, if you're using kind of less ink on here, you got plenty of leeway. You can go like this, and it's not going to be a problem, okay? But see, where you kind of develop it like that, you add more on the tops of those billows, and you develop that nice transitioning lighting in there, I guess you can say. Okay. Most of the times I'm used to doing shadows, but on things like dark foils and dark papers, it's suddenly kind of, you're developing light. when you're working on a white piece of paper, you're developing light through the use of dark, okay? But this is actually, you're starting on a dark surface, so you're using light media on top of that, okay? Now in here, there's no cloud formation, so I'm just kind of winging it and, faking it right in here. So I just kind of tapped a couple little taps here and there, okay? See how this is really kind of developing those, that lighting on those clouds in there. See that right down here? See this as it moves into the darkness. I'm not going to make that highlight down there as light, okay? So we get these nice kind of billowy clouds like that. Look at the difference between those and the ones down below. See how much more kind of, I don't know, whatever, fluffy and illuminated they are. Okay, now let's keep working this. Let's make some room here. These slimline cards. Okay, so here's some clouds down here. Remember, we put them at the base of the mountain. So I'm adding some of that down here. Alright, okay, so we have those highlights down there. Now, right around here, you just kind of flip it around and get into some of these other clouds, okay? Remember, the clouds above the eyes are bottom lit because I rotated the cloud. So I'm going to go like this. You can see that lighting really start to develop in here. That's a little bit too light just there, so you can just kind of spread it around a little bit. Okay. Getting in there. Alright, so we have our cloud kind of structure developed. Maybe a little bit more right around here. Oh, I see some more clouds down here. Let's see if I can get a really light illumination of the clouds down right next to the mountain. I just go with a drier application, and it takes me more taps for anything to show up, but then, I have a lot of control over the amount of application that's happening, the drier it is, because it takes more taps, okay? So you get that little bit of illumination down there, so let's take a look. See this right here? Let's see if I can show you where I've applied that. Sometimes I can show it on this, on the foil. See there, right there? You can see everywhere where I've applied it. Like that. And look at those eyes. That kind of cracks me up. I think it's really cool. Okay, let's get some of this illumination on the mountain as well. Now, I don't want this real soft illumination everywhere. We'll follow it up with some additional pen work. But this kind of gets things started, you know. We can get some variation going on that. Now, all I'm doing is I have this lighting kind of developed into this mountain here. So I'm just following suit. I'm not kind of inventing lighting here with this. I'm just reiterating what's on the designs. Alright, so there's that right there. See my slopes, number of slopes that I put in here. And then transition zones between slopes. If you're hiking in these mountains right here, we'd call it false summits, you know. Alright, so that is illuminated a little bit more. And I tell you what, around this, our Conjurer, I'm going to have our Conjurer conjuring with magic, you know, our glowing hands tends to be representative of kind of some sort of conjuring nature of things. Now, I'll need to add some white to that, but that is that. Okay, so I've added that. And we'll go in and add some highlights in here. And then we'll hit it again with the white. I love using white. We'll get our white paint pen. This is an acrylic white paint pen. You can use all, you know, there's different brands of them out there. I'm using the Meowsen one. It's written below in the description section. I won't spell it out right here. Okay, so let's add in some highlights here and there, okay? So I'm just adding some little highlights on these billows, okay? Kind of brings things to life quite a bit. I think I'm going to put some Dr. Martin's bleed proof white splatter painting over this whole thing, which will add texture and everything, a uniform texture, but I want to do some kind of directional lighting on here. So on the top parts of my billows where the clouds are the lightest, I'm just putting a little dot or two. You know, if it's really light, I might add some more highlights. Okay, now on my mountain here, on the peak and the summit, I'll add a few little highlights and I'll cluster it, but then I'll taper those dots out where it creates a little bit of a transition, you know, from light to dark. You know, the more darkness you put in a shadow, the darker the shadow, right? So you're kind of doing this the opposite with highlighting. You're adding more in the lighter areas, and then you're adding less as it moves around. So what you do is you space your dots out a little bit more. You have a higher concentration of them in the lighter areas, okay? They stand out a little bit too much right at this point in time, but we'll mellow that out with some additional tone. And that's where everything really starts to come together for me. Okay. Oh, I know what I can do. I'm going to put two crystals in those hands so it'll look like glowing crystals. Alright, so you can see that lighting in here. I didn't put too much because this scene's pretty dark, so see that right there? Tapered lighting, a little bit more dots up here, and then you spread them out as you go along, okay? Now see, this is getting farther away from the light. And now I can put a couple little dots, and look at that. See, there's one dot right there. It's going from light to dark, okay? And that's the concept. And I'm just kind of doing this, to make a point right here, but so you can see that more dots, less, one dot, okay? And then this is what it looks like at arm's distance. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like, oh my god, what's that dot doing there? It's just kind of lighting. It's very subdued when you hold it out like that. But look at those peaks down there now. Yeah, that looks really great. Let's see. Let's add a few more down here. Okay. All right. That is that. Let's grab our lighting applicator here. And see, I'm just putting these over those little dots, and it mellows it out a little bit more, and it looks more like, I don't know, kind of a mellow lighting in there, doesn't it? See, these stand out a little bit too much for me. And when I do this, it makes the cloud lighter under the light dot, or, next to the light dot, so it just kind of becomes a little bit more natural looking. At times, I don't always do that. Sometimes I want a real crisp looking dot, okay? But in this case, I think it looks better just to kind of fog it out a little bit. Especially down here, that really stands out, so let's make that a little bit lighter. So what we're doing is you're decreasing the contrast between that white dot and the background. The white dot and, what it's been applied to. Maybe, a little bit of with a cotton ball in this whole area. Yeah, a little bit more lighting in this piece, okay? So you just kind of develop things and kind of build it as you go. Like, it was looking a little bit too dark for me, so you had kind of a little bit of refinements here and there. It's a little bit too light in some ways, but I think the overall texture in here with the Dr. Martens is going to look pretty good. When in doubt, splatter paint everything. Not really, but, it can add quite a bit of a, I don't know, kind of a unifying touch, to everything. Because it kind of pushes everything back in the background, even if you do a very light application of this splatter painting. Because it's the thing that's the most foremost layer within the piece. And Dr. Martin's is a very super, super opaque white watercolor paint. And it, even in the tiniest of little dot, it's very, very opaque. I'd recommend it for everyone. I don't know what these cost these days, but it's probably like $5 or $6 a bottle. I have a link to it below, but you can shop it around. But for the amount of applications you have of this, even if you do it quite a bit, it can last you for 10 years. I don't apply this over the whole. I'm not soaking in my whole toothbrush. It's kind of the front third of it, because that's all you're going to need. All right. I mean, sometimes I reapply the ink and I go again, but most of the times I just need just a little bit up front here, like right in here, that amount. See, this whole area back here is, there's nothing in it, paint-wise. Okay, so let's take a look at this. You should be able to see where this is splatter painting over this dark foil pretty easily. And see, watch on my thumb, I'm just releasing a couple hairs at a time. And then, after I get midway or so, then I go back. And just spraying those same hairs, okay? Alright, I think that should do it. I didn't get the variation that I usually like, but it doesn't matter. You can just draw it in with your white paint pen. Let me show you what. So I like getting varied sizes of dots. I got a couple of them, but not too much. See, there's like one larger dot right there, a couple right through here, but there's the texture over it all, okay? It's like a mist or something like that. I like the difference of it up here. Now, see those eyes in there. It's like disappearing paint. I love that. Disappearing ink. All right, so sit down here. Now some of this gets a little bit too fuzzy. So what I do is I go back in. A little bit of black here, okay? Now that Dr. Martin dries pretty fast. In fact, it's probably already dry, so you can just go over it like this with no problem. So on here, I'm kind of coloring some of these little specks of paint. I'm coloring them kind of a gray, so that some of this splatter painting doesn't show up as much. It still shows up a little bit, but not as much, so it's subdued a little bit. All right. That is that. Okay, so see there's right over here, it's not so kind of dusty looking, it's a little bit darker and lighter over here. See these little dots over here? But look how white they are over here. It's because I've just altered it so I get different values of those dots, like that. See, I don't know, it's a little better. From a textural standpoint. Now what I like to do is, we'll vary some of those little dots, so I'll just come in here like this. I don't know what this represents. It, stardust, whatever. Some kind of just magical little texturing, whatever. Go for a bigger one. You just kind of scribble it in there. kind of cluster a few of them, you know, have some of it in front of the mountain. You know, kind of group them occasionally. You know, so that everything doesn't look so uniform. And I think it looks a little bit better that way, to not have it so uniform and evenly spaced. Okay, it's a little bit more random looking. So it's like purposely random, at least in appearance, not in application. You kind of have to force it a little bit. Okay, but anyways, here's that kind of snow, kind of fall in there. I'm missing a couple right in here. Okay. All right, now I have a final touch on here, I think. In terms of imagery, I think some sort of foreground imagery might be kind of nice to frame this off a touch more. And I think I have the right, the perfect thing for that purpose here. All right, we have a spooky branch here. I'm going to put some of these impressions here and there within the piece. It might not show up too much because, you know, the whole thing is kind of dark, so the only place where you're really going to be able to see it very well is when I overlap some of the lighter areas. But we'll get a little bit of it showing here and there, I think. Just to kind of bring, I don't know, stronger, depth of field, I guess. Having something real close to us, you know. Right now the figure's the closest thing to us, but okay, let's see. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of like a lightning bolt, you know, the way this this branch is. So it kind of adds to the, you know, the explosive nature of the visuals. Okay. I'm kind of surrounding the figure here at the base, but then we'll also use it higher up in a couple areas. All right. See that? This branches down here. See it right there. Now I won't be using the whole piece. Sometimes I'm just using a little part of it, so. Yeah, see that right there? The sky. It's right here. And I'll balance it off coming over this way. It's kind of framed off a touch. I don't know if you can even see it. It's a little textural in there, but there it is right there. I'm going to do it on the top too. I'm just going to go over the whole thing, I think. Top and bottom. It's not, you know, I mean, this thing, I mean, we're not going for like realism. It's like fantasy here, so we go with a I can't remember what, I've lost my art terminology over the years from classes, but I don't know, it's more symbolic or something like that. See that right up there? So here it is right here. It's kind of coming together a little bit more, don't you think? With all those little touches like that. There's not a lot of stamps in here, okay? It's just, you're kind of doing, there's a bunch of small little steps in here that are cumulatively, you know, kind of bring things together a lot more. You know, you do little tweaks in there. Okay, let's heat set this and let's get this thing mounted up. notice when it curls now, and then when I put it down, it kind of starts setting a little bit more. I think I found that yesterday too. It's like when we've bent the back a little bit more, so it's just a little more pliable than that first heat setting where it's you're kind of shaping the pulp of the paper for the first time, and the foil too. I guess the foil kind of starts to develop some sort of memory on it too. And then we just total bend it out of place. Okay, so anyways, so here's this going right here. Okay, and then we have our little secret area in the sky like that. Watch this right here. Okay, even down here, everything looks a little bit different. It's like lightning hitting it or something like that when you do that. Okay, we'll get this mounted and figure it out from there. I think with a couple crystals as the final touches, though. Okay, I've done some formatting here onto a much stiffer cardstock. It's nice to have this foil kind of flattened out here, and I also added night music there. I thought it kind of looked interesting in there as far as, I don't know, kind of the theme of this piece here. It's kind of like a little conductor down here, conducting, I don't know what type of music this would be, but I don't know. I felt it went kind of within the theme of the piece. Okay, now I'm going to add in a couple little touches here with some glue and crystals. And I think that will add a nice little finishing touch on here. Okay, I'm going to add a fairly large crystal, so I'm just going with direct glue to surface here, even though this glue is so thick. I'll try to wipe it off right here and not get this little strand sticking out. I did over there a little bit, but oh well. Okay, let's go with a fairly large crystal. Maybe not the biggest one, that's too big, but I think this size right here, is that too big? Let me see. Yeah, okay. We'll go this size right here. Oh, one size down. All right, these are just some clear crystals. Okay. And here they are right here. And we'll put it in each hand for that little final touch. Unless we need more. Sometimes if I add more, it might detract from those crystals on the hands. I'm not sure. Okay, let's see, like that. It says crystals down there. They're kind of glowing in this hand here. I'm tempted. Okay, I'm going to add a couple really small crystals up there. I think that'll be good in that space. It just, I don't know. I think it could benefit from that. All right. We've gone this far, and if you have watched to this point, we're going to take you all the way for those viewers that have patiently sit there. Sometimes I'm shocked at the viewership for some of the full-length videos is longer than the intros. So I don't know if that just means that they're, they could be watching, 10 seconds of the full length, for all I know, but anyway, if anyone kind of makes it through these, I sure thank you for checking them out, and I'm glad they're interesting enough for you to kind of tune in and check them out to that degree. Right, I have a spot for a couple crystals right there. Tempted to put one right in kind of like the eye. Yeah, maybe I will. I'll put one right in the corner of their eye. I'm going to do it on both of them. Like a little twinkle in their eye. No one said that the eye in the sky is evil or anything like that. Could be the creative spirit, who knows. Okay. Let's just go with some fairly small crystals. This scene's really bold, I don't know how small I want to go. Luckily this pack comes in, various sizes here. Of crystals to choose from. I mean, you don't have to go with one size up here, but I just want these. I don't want these ones to be too large. Oops, got 2 crystals there. Smash them down a little bit. Oops. Smash them down too much. Otherwise it sticks to your gem jewel picker. Okay, let's see here. Let me see those little gems up there. And then here the eyes are. Right there. See that right there? Hidden little figure up there. Oops, I just put my gems in my glue. Don't do that. Do a couple little larger dots right here just to match the size of some of those gems. Okay, let's take a look and see what we have here. Hidden Vanishing Ink 2. I don't have a quote over the whole thing, but just kind of an open sky, night music. Someone gets your card, and oh, there's some little gems up there. Oh, there's the eyes. And they'll let you know. Did you know there were eyes up in your scene? Hopefully that doesn't spook them out if you don't tell them about that. And then they go like that to just kind of check out the gems, those little crystals up there. And oh my gosh, there's eyes looking back at, spying on me or something like that. But anyways, another fun scene with this. This scene took a little while to do, admittedly. I mean, it'd take a lot less if I just did a quarter standard card size, but I don't know, I really wanted to play around with that type of idea and had this idea of this transitioning kind of, mountain, cloud, foundation down here. He's out kind of in the desert. There's something kind of spiritual type of thing to that. But you can see these branches in here. See these branches? You can't really see them very well, but you can really see them with that light reflected on it. And you can see little remnants of it here and there. I sacrificed that branch over here for the night music, but I think that looks pretty good. Branches kind of pointing down from the top, kind of direct the viewer's eye down there. Look at those little twinkly little bits like that. They're really fun. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the scene. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel. And look at the eyes there. The eyes have it. I don't have a quote that says that. But I just really have fun with that kind of a phenomenon, foil phenomenon there. It's just a lot of fun to do. Okay, until the next scene, thanks again for tuning into the channel.